Number 8. The Great Pyramids of Egypt. The Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed over a span of 20 years during the legendary reign of King Khufu, who ruled Egypt between 2589 and 2566. It wasn't the first pyramid ever built, but it was the greatest in Egypt. It also remained the tallest structure made by human hands until the completion of the Eiffel Tower in 1889. That means that a giant triangle made in Egypt was the most impressive monument on the planet, rising 479 feet until about 130 years ago. The pyramid was first excavated in 1880 when it was still the tallest building in the world. Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie didn't find much except a few scraps of wood inside. Archaeologists still believe the Great Pyramid and its two companions were used as tombs for pharaohs, but not everybody agrees with the hypothesis. No bodies were ever found inside the pyramids. Other than the fact they kind of look like tombs, there isn't much in the way of physical evidence to prove they were made as the final resting places for kings. A lot of people claim aliens built the pyramids, though science has largely ruled that out. Recent discoveries have shown the pyramids were likely built using ramps, water canals, and unionized laborers. There are theories that Egyptians used levitation technology or that they had help from extraterrestrials, but in reality, they were just really good builders. Some have said the pyramids were used to store grain. In 1859, John Taylor published a book that suggested Noah from the Bible was behind the construction of the pyramids. There are rumors of an ancient library hidden underneath the Sphinx, containing a wealth of knowledge that could change the world. Others have suggested the Great Pyramids are like icebergs. That's to say, they are only the tips of enormous megastructures buried hundreds of feet beneath the sand. After standing for 4,500 years, the pyramids at Giza remain one of the greatest mysteries in the world. Number 7. The Plague Pits. Between 1665 and 1666, the city of London was crushed by the bubonic plague. The city was dirty, frothing with sewage, and overcrowded. It was no surprise that when the plague came to London, it exploded. About 100,000 people died in the first 24 months. But what did they do with all the corpses? Historical records show that London began digging plague pits. There were hundreds of plague pits scattered across the city, used specifically for burying plague victims. All these years later, some of them are still missing. Most of the plague pits were created on church property, but as the pits continuously filled with bodies, the churches simply didn't have enough room for them all. The bodies were then taken by wagon or donkey cart to the farms outside London. Many of the plague pits on the outskirts of town are unaccounted for. For that matter, many of the plague pits in London are unaccounted for as well. Most of what historians know about the mass burials of the 17th century come from a handful of writers. For example, writer Daniel Defoe described visiting a plague pit in the parish of Aldgate. He said the pit piqued his curiosity, so he went to gaze into it. The hole in the ground was about 40 feet long, 16 feet wide, and 9 feet deep, but it was originally dug 20 feet deep, meaning Daniel Defoe was gazing at 10 feet of stacked plague victims. He also wrote that there were several pits before that, which had already been covered. The bottom line is that there are undiscovered plague pits all around London. Tens of thousands of bodies that remain missing to this day. London was built on heaps of bones. And on that note, it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Tassosaurus and Mark4PJ for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about mysterious archaeological discoveries. Number 6. Agersborg. The biggest Viking Trelleborg in Denmark is a mysterious archaeological site called Agersborg. Trelleborgs were built in strategically important areas throughout Denmark and Sweden. Mostly they were built by King Harald Bluetooth near the end of the Viking Age between 958 and 986. King Harald was the ruler who introduced Christianity to Denmark. Trelleborgs were large circular fortifications divided into quadrants. These were usually put near narrow passages so that enemy forces couldn't move around unchallenged. Agersborg is particularly imposing. The fortress is over 700 feet in diameter. It once contained 48 longhouses, which housed an estimated 5,000 Viking soldiers. The houses were made in simple Viking style, slightly sunken with curved roofs that almost looked like the hulls of ships. The purpose of this fortification is highly debated. One common theory is that Harold Bluetooth built Agersborg after losing control of southern Jutland to the rampaging Saxons. Another theory is that Harold Bluetooth had nothing to do with the fortification. It may have been built by Viking leader Svein Forkbeard as a staging ground for raids against England. Historical records show that Svein attacked England 3 times between 1002 and 1012. The attacks happened after the brutal St. Brice's Day massacre, in which Danish inhabitants in England were slaughtered on Friday the 13th, November 1002. The massacre was ordered by King Ethelred II, aka Ethelred the Unready. Svein attacked England out of vengeance, forcing Ethelred to flee to Normandy. If Agersborg was really the staging area for the invasion, it would make it one of the most important historical sites in Scandinavia. After Ethelred fled, Svein became the first Viking king of England. Number 5. Nalanda University. The ancient city of Nalanda is located in the Indian state of Bihar. It was the center for higher learning in the Gupta Empire starting around 1600 years ago. The city still stands today, though it's in ruins. Not much is left of the legendary Nalanda University, one of the first great schools in world history. Historians think Nalanda was the first residential university ever built. Nalanda city has a long, storied history going back 3,200 years. Archaeological excavations have found artifacts from long before the birth of the Buddha. This was an important city in ancient India centuries before Buddhism was invented. The city continued to grow and expand until the 5th century AD, when Nalanda University was founded by Chakraditya. He was the emperor of the Gupta Empire from 415 to 455 AD. His successors continued to expand the institution. Within a century, Nalanda University had become what was potentially the greatest school of learning in the world. The monarchs of the Gupta Empire were so excited about the prospect of knowledge that they encouraged patronage of the university. The school was given donations from groups all across India who wished to support the institution. It was a big deal for the empire to have such a prestigious school. Nalanda University played a major role in promoting the patronage of arts and sciences for 200 years of India's golden age. The school itself functioned for almost 1,000 years, with a full-time faculty of Buddhists, philosophers, and the greatest scholars in the world. What happened to this great institution of knowledge is a mystery. Archaeological excavations revealed a thick layer of ash across the city of Nalanda. It was likely burned in a catastrophic fire around the year 1200 AD. As for who would burn such a splendid school, that would be Muhammad Bakhtiyar Khalji. Historical records show that the Afghan military general from the Ghurid Empire pillaged the area at the same time of the fire. He may have raided Nalanda and scorched the library. Sadly, researchers will never know what legendary scripts and books were lost. Losing Nalanda University was just as damaging as losing the Library of Alexandria, maybe even worse. Number 4. The Tomb of the Unknown Queen. A team of archaeologists in Egypt have discovered the tomb of an Egyptian queen that nobody knew existed until now. It happened nearly 100 years to the very day after the discovery of King Tut's tomb. Researchers at the Saqqara necropolis south of Cairo unearthed a few hundred tombs. It isn't even that rare these days to uncover new tombs. Archaeologists are doing it all the time. There seems to be an unending supply of new tombs for Egyptologists to pick through. This time, researchers identified the generals and advisors of King Tut who were buried in Saqqara. There were about 300 coffins from the New Kingdom period. Each coffin was decorated with a unique face, making it easy to distinguish the men from the women. Each coffin was also decorated with scenes from Egypt's Book of the Dead. Archaeologist Zahi Hawass said each coffin also has the name of the dead person, which makes identification extra easy. Believe it or not, the coffins were not the most exciting part of the discovery. Archaeologists were floored when they realized they were dealing with the ruins of a pyramid. It wasn't a particularly large pyramid, but a pyramid nonetheless. There was an entire pyramid in Saqqara beneath the sand, and archaeologists only now just found it. They discovered inscriptions suggesting the pyramid was built as a burial monument for Queen Neith. Nobody had ever heard of Queen Neith before. She was totally unknown in the historical record. The queen appears to have gotten her name from the Egyptian goddess of war. According to the Egyptian Museum, Neith was the patron goddess of Sais. She was worshipped as an important deity from the earliest days of Egypt, even before there were dynasties. Neith continued to function as the goddess of war up until the arrival of the Romans. There were legends that Neith was present for the making of the world. Some myths have her as the mother of Ra, the sun god, and Sobek, the crocodile god. But what about the real Queen Neith? Archaeologists are stumped. They don't know when she served as queen. They don't know if she ruled alone or alongside a pharaoh. It's baffling because even though there were powerful queens in ancient Egypt, they weren't given pyramids. Why did Queen Neith get her own pyramid? She must have been one of the most important queens in the country's history, yet there are no records of her. Who do you think Queen Neith was in ancient Egypt? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 3. The Golden Oasis. Sijil Massa is the El Dorado of ancient Africa. It's a sad ruin located in the desert of Morocco, with crumbling walls and dust blowing through its empty streets. It lost its grandeur long ago, yet remains a site of great historical importance. Sijil Massa was once the Golden Oasis, the majestic gateway to the Sahara Desert. Starting in the 8th century AD, Sijil Massa became an important stop on the African gold route. It was one of the many African cities that thrived because of gold being mined across the continent and shipped to other kingdoms in Europe and Asia. The city was founded by Sufri Kajiri Muslim refugees who fled to the Tafilalt Oasis at the northern edge of the Sahara. The oasis was extremely important because any trader caravans coming from the south needed to stop here to rest and refuel. It was necessary to take a break at the oasis before moving inland to the desert or toward the coast. So, the founders of Sijil Massa became very rich. Somewhere along the line, the city took on a legend of its own. Ancient Arab writers told stories of gold and silver deposits around the city. Arab author Ibn Yaqubi said, "The gold is discovered like vegetation, and it stated that wind blows it away." This was maybe just a slight exaggeration, but you get the point. There was basically so much gold, the wind was blowing it around. Archaeological evidence has shown that pure gold coins were minted in the city during the 10th century AD. Gold had been moving through the oasis even before Sijil Massa was founded, maybe as early as the 4th century AD. For centuries, this was the epicenter of gold being extracted from Central Africa. There were even rumors that the Romans had established Sijil Massa 700 years earlier than the Sufri Kajiri Muslims. However, historians don't think that's true. There haven't been any Roman artifacts discovered to prove they even visited this place. During the late part of the 14th century, civil war broke out. The oasis city of gold was decimated, never to be fully rebuilt. People still lived there, but Sijil Massa never again rose to glory. Many believe there is still a wealth of gold to be discovered, hiding beneath the ruins. Number 2. Dunant. Starting 1,500 years ago, Dunant became one of the most important places in Scotland. Today, it looks like a lump of dirt. Dunant is a rocky outcrop on the other side of a wire fence, with a quaint white farmhouse sitting at its base. It doesn't look like anything even remotely important. It looks like a dirt hill in a farmer's backyard. But from 500 AD until 900 AD, it was the capital of a kingdom. Dunant was where kings were anointed and where fates of worlds were decided. The original Scots, not the Picts who lived in Scotland during the Roman occupation of Britain, came from Ireland. They settled in huge numbers and founded the Kingdom of Dalriada. They made Dunant their capital and from it conquered the land. They absorbed the ancient Picts, who had been living in Scotland since time immemorial, into their kingdom. By the year 843, Kenneth MacAlpin became both King of Dalriada and King of the Picts. Everything was going just great until the Vikings showed up and started raiding the coastlines. Because Dunant was so close to the sea, the Scots abandoned it. They moved their capital to Scone to be safe from the Vikings, and thus ended the glory of Dunant. Now there is a farmer whose house is sitting at the very site where the first Scots crowned kings for a span of 400 years. All that's left of the fortress are a few pieces of stone at the top of the outcrop. Number 1. The Jinsha Site. In February 2001, the China Real Estate Development Group was in the middle of a construction project when they made an accidental discovery. They found a drain pit filled with artifacts made of bronze, jade, and ivory. Local government immediately sent out cultural archaeologists to investigate the area. The day after the discovery, excavations were already underway. Researchers soon found the ruins of an advanced civilization from around 3,200 years ago. The Jinsha civilization emerged following the collapse of the even more mysterious Sanxingdui civilization. But unlike their predecessors, the people of Jinsha didn't build any walls or moats. They created a vast city without any defensive perimeters at all. The sprawling city soon became the capital of the Shu state during the Shang dynasty, but around 2,500 years ago, it started to disappear. Jinsha was only populated for 700 years until political turmoil and earthquakes resulted in its destruction. Archaeologists also think there may have been a flood that destroyed the region, causing people to abandon Jinshan. Archaeologists unveiled weird stone weapons and daggers made from jade. They found ancient pits filled to the brim with Asian elephant tusks. There were other weapons made from boar tusks and deer antlers. Researchers have found buildings, kilns, pits, tombs, and residential areas, yet much about the mysterious people is unknown. They left no writing behind to tell future generations what their culture was like. All we have to go on are the hundreds of weird artifacts excavated from the pits. The culture was likely the same as the one at Sanxingdui, only centuries older. Just like Sanxingdui, Jinshan came to an abrupt end. The people fled so quickly, they didn't take their treasures with them. Thanks for watching! Which of these mysterious places would you like to visit the most? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time! Bye!